If you oftentimes hear the term the age of Aquarius and you have no idea what people are talking about, this is one of the first things and maybe one of the only things you need to know about this particular time period. The first thing is that we are moving out of an age of illusion and into an age of conscious realization. And Ice Spice and the energy around her come up, and everything that has transpired so far is a microcosm of what is happening on a conscious level when it comes to separating from the past and entering into what is actually age Aquarius thinking and consciousness. Because what exactly is appealing to people about Ice Spice? Or better yet, what do all four of these individuals have in common? And before you ask why I'm focusing on these particular people in this particular community, it's because I've been asked about some of these individuals recently, but they all have the same thing in common. They all appeal to everyone's lowest possible instincts. To understand what is meant by an age and what it feels like to live through that age, you have to think back on how fixated we once were about love and relationships, about artists in general or people who work in entertainment, and how mesmerized we once were by that entire process. It was something that we almost saw as separate from ourselves, something that only certain special people could embody, which is already a false statement and something that was keeping us separate from our own divinity. But what it also did was perpetuate a state of illusion, which is also very Piscean. The concept of escapism, the concept of substance use, the concept of creating things to feel a certain way because you are doing things and running off of fear and fumes. This was the age that we were living in, but we just weren't consciously aware that that was a problem. We all thought, because it was ruled by the masculine, that we were just checking things off a list, and seeing people like this make it to the masculine level of making it makes a lot of people feel at their lowest level that they can live vicariously through that experience. The truth of our consciousness is that most people are living at a level of powerlessness, of fear, of instability, of blocked creativity. This is why we see a manifestation of all of our mental health issues and everything that is happening in our present world. But when the foundation starts to crack, this is what we see as moving into the age of Aquarius, into an age of intellect, into an age where the illusion is no longer working on you because you are not consciously at that level anymore. This is why people make such a big deal about what is being fed to children, because their consciousness is inherently not as developed as everyone else's. And whose side you fall on when it comes to a lot of these things that have been coming out will oftentimes tell you where your consciousness is. So to go back to what appeals to people about an artist like this, it's because it feeds the old systems and the old programming in your mind about what is successful, beautiful, and worthy of love. Because at the end of the day, our total consciousness is void deeply of self-love. And all four of these individuals display that in their own way, that they're living through fear, through unconsciousness, through disconnectedness, and through a lack of self-love. The reason why people connected to what Cleo had to say and why it's resonating so far is because we are living in an era of truth and in an era of self-love. And there was never a moment through any of her story where she allowed herself to internalize the treatment and the energy and the darkness that she was now fully aware of and that she was receiving from someone who has been playing a role this entire time. The sole purpose for the twin flame experience is a physical manifestation of the battle you are facing within yourself. One of the reasons why we ask ourselves if we are more feminine or if we are more masculine is simply our way of trying to understand where we're going to start in our journey in coming back to ourselves, which is another way of saying finding wholeness and balance within yourself. The universe, you included, is always trying to correct itself. And for some of us, meeting our twin flame is a part of our soul's purpose in correcting part of the imbalances of the collective by facing those challenges in our own lives. Whether or not you think Kim and Kanye have divinity is really not up to you before you go ahead and type that. And whether or not you believe that their souls vibrate at a certain level or not to make them twin flames also isn't up to you. Regardless, we all have twin flames because we all have a physical representation of our other polarity. And there are a lot of aspects of Kim and Kanye that mirror each other, which makes me feel like they may be on a twin flame journey as someone who is on it and who has known their twin flame since they were 15. So the first question becomes, how do you know? How can you tell? Well, for me, you know in person when you meet them through eye contact. When I'm looking from the outside looking in, I can tell a similar soul vibration. And there is always something about two twin flames coming together that is very polarizing for the external world. Something about it is typically triggering to a lot of people. You're usually very opposite demographically when it comes to either racial or economically or even your age or your ethnicity. And something about the coming together of you and your twin flame is triggering to other people. Typically, that triggering stems from a place of not understanding why they feel this like otherworldly energy coming off of the two of you. And a lot of people become very threatened by that initially. But really, it's just the majesty and divinity of a soul being in a state of wholeness in a physical place. And it's a very strong energy. A lot of the beginnings of their relationship mirror this intensity of falling in love with one another and then having this sort of hot and heavy beginning that only lasts for like 6 to 8 weeks, and then suddenly you go your separate ways. But the main point of this journey is the ways in which you grow as an individual as a result of the same mirrored wounding. The perspective of a lot of this mirroring is going to come from the feminine's point of view, because that is the one that I have personally experienced, but I will try to infuse some masculine perspectives that I have learned from others over time. The reason for a lot of our internal struggle as humans is because we're either battling how much of ourselves we're willing to give up for love, or how much of ourselves we're willing to give up for personal physical gain. Then when you have a twin flame experience, it's just a physical manifestation of that push and pull. You have one polarity who's very focused on the love that they want to receive. Whether it's being loved the way you want to be loved in a romantic relationship and being seen as worthy of that love from that person, wanting to be loved for your craft, wanting to be loved by your family members, wanting to be loved by your parents. This is usually what drives the feminine. How can I be loved? And your twin flame experience often shows you in times of separation and in times of contact until you've reached balance, just how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice and give up until you get that love. While the masculine counterpart usually fixates on the things that they can gain materially. There is something that feels impractical to them at that given point in time about the twin flame connection, and really that's just them inherently sensing the imbalance within themselves, their unwillingness to go deeper in relationships. It becomes, or gets to a place where it becomes too vulnerable for the masculine, and that's when they run away from that connection into connections that make them feel like they have more control. And the control is all around how much they want to gain materially and how much they are willing to give up or betray within their own selves, within their own heart, and what their own heart truly wants in order to fulfill something that they think is more materially logical. But once these individuals get together, the work in figuring out how to continue to balance self and then balance a relationship doesn't stop. You may get to a point where you're finally vibrating at the same place and you're both fulfilling a role in a balanced way, whether the masculine is sometimes flopping and taking on a feminine role and vice versa. The human experience of gender oftentimes dictates how the twins can dance with each other to create balance in a long-term relationship. However, if you are not doing self-work, each polarity has the propensity to become toxic and go into another separation. Because Kanye is a life path 11, being above or ahead the spiritual curve is just a part of his life, but there is a form of toxic femininity that involves spiritual addiction or that can lead people into a place of spiritual psychosis. I'm not suggesting that that is what he experienced in a medical term. I'm not diagnosing him. I'm just speaking from personal experience. You can become so obsessed with the spiritual aspects of life and the unfairness and the imbalance of the physical world that you become mentally and emotionally detached from the physical world and unable to reattach yourself, which can lead to you becoming delusional, you having negative spiritual experiences. It could lead to depression because your lack of connectedness to the physical world is starting to cloud your judgment. So therefore, it starts to create actual physical reprehensible issues in your life, especially behind you trying to keep your twin flame union together. The mirroring happens because their judgment is also clouded. It is just led by the lower energy aspects of your masculine side. It's like they become greedy, entitled, way overly materialistic. They need everything, and it's because they are still trying to sacrifice to gain personally. But the thing about twins is they will pop in and out of whichever vibration that the other one is in. So you will see Kim display some of those things that Kanye displays and vice versa, because you don't ever fully stay in your dominant polarity. As separation continues and individuals continue to not choose healing, you can see individuals try to recreate those relationships with other partners. You see a lot of toxic feminine energy in the controlling nature, allegedly, in this relationship, as well as the schmexual fixation and the constant hedonism, with the same insatiability being mirrored on the other side, with being overcritical, being unkind to others. And we see that with Kim and her sisters, and projecting your unhappiness outwardly. While one implodes from the inside, one destroys from the outside. In a continued wounded state, one continues to try to fill the void that they feel internally by not having the stability in their life with a partner, while the other one continues to fill the void that they feel internally with outside things and taking up too much space because they don't want to face the intimacy issues that they're inherently dealing with in their life. Mirrors. Here is a random list of men who you might think resonate as masculine dominant, but are actually feminine dominant. It's important, and I can't stress this enough, to understand what gender and energy have to do with each other. If you don't understand that, please go watch the video I posted before this. I think at this point, it's probably sitting at a cool 400 views, and it's very informative. But as we get into this list, it's important for you to understand that if I say that a man is feminine dominant, I am not insulting that man, which is why I've started with this, beloved. because I am in no way insulting those men, just like I am in no way insulting women if I say they are masculine dominant. Once again, this is about resonance. This is about how people are naturally inclined. This is about either being naturally gravitated towards your ego or naturally gravitated towards your soul. The ego speaks to you through the mind, the soul speaks to you through the heart, and the third eye when you get good at it. It is also important to know that just because you resonate in one direction doesn't mean you are perfect in those specific chakra areas. For example, just because I'm a feminine dominant woman doesn't mean that my sacral, my heart, or my third eye, or my crown is perfectly balanced. It doesn't mean that. I still have to work on those areas. However, the ones that challenge me the most are the masculine areas, and the same goes for all of the men that exist on this list. So let's get into it. Justin Bieber. This is the only feminine dominant man that I would have to find my big boy pants for and pull him up. Starting with the heart chakra, a lot of feminine dominant men have really big hearts, and they have a passionate, peaceful disposition. Sometimes the peaceful disposition can be mistaken for being soft or timid. However, a lot of feminine dominant men may struggle in their solar plexus, which may cause them to feel this sense of inferiority complex. It's really important for feminine dominant men to have a sense of faith, and you may see these men oftentimes reach out for a sense of spirituality. And because these individuals are still socialized as men, there is a culture of imbalance that is sort of perpetuated and comes out and is displayed in different men who resonate in different ways. For example, there is an energy of overactivity or overstimulation within the masculine energy as a collective, right? In a lot of feminine dominant men, you can see this overstimulation come out in the sense of being over schmexualized and struggling heavily to ground their reality, because there's always this sort of unrealistic, one might call over imaginative mentality that sometimes takes over and creates an inability to ground oneself in reality. Whereas you see this overactivity, overstimulation from the masculine chakras with like greed or having to be like power hungry and violence, etc., etc. So you may see a lot of men ping pong back and forth between those imbalances, but when you see something more persistently, more profoundly, likely that person resonates in that area. So you can definitely see these things in Justin Bieber, and I would say his instinct to be protective, to want a family, is very feminine. And that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna go into too much detail on Ye, because the details on Ye are soon coming, so definitely stay tuned for that. There are some things I want to discuss about his particular situation presently, but we can see a lot of spiritual imbalances in Ye and a desire to sort of understand spirituality from a deep point of view. Not for nothing, he's a life path 11, and as a life path 11, we are highly spiritually connected beings. This is a divine femme, completely off the rails, but also socialized as a man, so completely off the rails in a masculine way as well. Are you seeing what I'm saying? But there are other examples who we can say show a lot more balance and grace with how they show up as a feminine dominant masculine. Okay? All right? And this one here, Peter Thomas, this is going to be a little bit of a follow-up for people who didn't believe that Cynthia was masculine dominant, if you actually watch their relationship, the one who was easily going into their heart space and begging their partner to be emotionally present was Peter. And I'm gonna die on that hill. Richie D, because Erica was definitely wearing the pants in that relationship and is and will. You have to have such a pure heart to do some of the things that this man has done, and especially for his partner. And it's that type of self-sacrifice that you see in a lot of feminine energy. It comes innate to feminines until they learn how to choose themselves. That's the difference. Masculine dominants need to learn how to not choose themselves and choose other people, and feminine dominants need to learn how to choose themselves and not choose other people. Do you understand? And not all masculine dominant women are toxic. Like, that too. And no, you can't change. This is another one that I might have to find my big boy pants for. And I almost forgot this one. You will watch his interviews with Nikki a different way now that you know this, because that man just be kikiing. And like I said in the last video, you can tell a lot about how a person resonates when you look at who they always have issues with. And in the last video, I said that masculine dominant women oftentimes have issues with feminine dominant women. Most feminines get into it with other feminines who can go toe to toe with them. We deal with confrontation and things like that from masculines. It's not something that is sought out for unless we feel hurt, betrayed. And then you will see the wrath. So let me know what y'all think in the comments.
So let's recap for a minute, because I've literally just been sitting here like, because what's going on? And then I realized that we as a collective have just woken up from probably, arguably, one of the biggest glamorings as a consciousness that we have ever experienced. We were literally under such a false belief in a couple of things that have now caused us to recalibrate and also redefine certain aspects of our human life. Okay, so what do I mean by that? One of the reasons why people were so obsessed with Diddy, because there was a point in history where everything was about Diddy. This picture is from the documentary Diddy Runs the City, where we're watching him get ready to run the New York City Marathon for absolutely no reason. Allegedly, this was to raise money for kids. You see him on the phone with people, being really intense, yelling at coworkers, running from assistants trying to give him information. You just see this sense of intensity around something that he arguably doesn't have to be doing. But all you keep hearing him say over and over again is, I just work so hard. I'm so hardworking. This is how I've amassed all of this, because I just work the hardest. I just want it the most. And if you watched Making the Band back in the day, that was also one of the biggest points they tried to drive home. Who wants it more? Who's willing to sacrifice more? Just to find out that it was never about working hard. These achievements were never through the means of actual hard work. The only thing that he was working hard at is sucking out the life force energy of everyone around him to meet the ends to his means. So, in my opinion, this means we have to completely reevaluate and redefine what hard work really looks like. Because I would say that we don't really know. Most of what we thought was hard work was really giving up your power and giving up your morals, your values, and your deep sense of spiritual self. Now, that's no longer for sale. So, What have we learned? We've learned that if we are ever dealing with an entity that makes us feel like we have to debase ourselves in order to achieve something, we are dealing with low vibrational dark energy. The next thing I want to recap is the concept of being glamored and the concept of being lured in and charmed by your perception of what you think something is. Somehow that's not working on the majority of us. You can definitely tell who it's still working on, but by and large, people are not responding to celebrity the way that we were used to. So how do we move forward? What changes? I think it's about noticing every false thing and turning over every rock. Even when you look at this image, you don't even look at it the same way when you first saw it. When you first saw it in the old consciousness, you thought, wow, look at all these, important people in the same room. And you look at this photo, you see Alicia Keys staring off into space, Beyonce's focused on Jay-Z, big surprise. Kim is zeroed in on Beyonce to the point where it's kind of awkward. And Cassie is looking like she's having like the best time of her life so desperately. And we all know now just how false that really is. Our only job now is to be able to detect that because it has permeated every area of our lives. And in order to create a new vision that has clarity and that represents who we are now as a consciousness, we are going to have to go through the arduous process of seeing every last one of these individuals the way they really appear. I don't know everything, but I do know a lot. And what I don't know, I will look up. And you know what? Because of that, I have realized that everyone in this life is simply playing a role. In listening to one of my favorite YouTubers, Academy of Ideas, I was struck by some philosophical information he was giving us from Carl Jung. And I want to share it with you because it is going to show you just how much everyone is playing a very specific role here and how important it is for you to figure out what role you play. In a discussion about the self and the state, the Academy of Ideas included several quotes from Carl Jung about what it's like when an individual over-associates and over-identifies with their particular office or their job or their career. The office I hold is certainly my special activity, but it is also a collective factor that has come into existence historically through the cooperation of many people whose dignity rests solely on collective approval. What does that mean? That means that whatever it is that I'm doing in my job, the community, the collective has decided that this role is important. So therefore I hold this role, and people begin to inflate their sense of importance through the role that they hold. Hold that thought. When therefore I identify myself with my office or title, behave as though I myself were the whole complex of social factors of which that office consists, or as though I were not only the bearer of the office, but also, and at the same time, the approval of society, I have made an extraordinary extension of myself and have usurped qualities which are not in me, but are outside of me. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that when I decide that because I hold space as a content creator, that I am this platform, which I am not. I might be the facilitator of this platform. I might have given the idea of this information, but I am not even the platform that I hold. Y'all allow me to hold this platform, correct? The ego has appropriated something that does not belong to it, meaning that people take their roles out of context of what it is and think it is who they are. Wait for it. An extension of the personality beyond individual limits, in other words, is a state of being puffed up. He goes on to describe what it's like to be in a puffed up state. God almightiness does not make man divine. It merely fills him with arrogance and arouses everything evil in him. It produces a diabolical caricature of a man. And this inhuman mask is so unendurable, such a torture to wear, that he tortures others. I'm gonna say that one more again. It merely fills him with arrogance and arouses everything evil in him. When the man thinks he is the office, when he thinks he is that role, it produces a diabolical character of man. And this inhuman mask is so unendurable, such a torture to wear, that he tortures others. A state of being puffed up. This man is the manifestation of what happens to your ego when you believe you are what you do. We are all playing a role. Which role are you playing? You know what I think these two people have in common, besides the fact that they're both water signs, is I think that they serve as a great example of what happens when your solar plexus is fractured at a young age. Both of these individuals have that chameleon-like personality where they learned at a young age that if they morph into whatever the powers that be want them to be, they will receive love, admiration, accolades, etc. And this is why there have been so many different versions of them, to the point where it's hard to know who they really are. And people every day are doing this. People every day are still trying to be whatever their parents wanted them to be when they were kids, whatever they got praised for in high school, and are still living in that version of themselves. It's not meant for you to stay that one version. You're supposed to evolve. But when you don't know how to evolve and you think that evolution and morphing into something is the same thing, you become lost, because they're not the same thing. Like, even when you look back, if you watch Degrassi, I'm an avid Degrassi person. If you want to hear me talk about Degrassi at length, comment in the video and let me know. But even when you look back on Degrassi, Drake raps like Jimmy. Like, Drake initially raps like Jimmy. Whoever they wanted her to be when she was on that show, she was that. You understand what I'm saying? And so it becomes a reflex. It becomes embedded into who you are when you believe that all you have to do is transform into whatever the outside or external world wants you to be, and therefore that is who you are. You reinforce that over and over and over again. But if you don't realize you're doing that, you will get to a point where you not only don't know who you are, but you have very inauthentic relationships. And that's a lot of what I see with these interviews going around with this Wicked film. This strikes me as a relationship of two people who will literally never speak to each other again after this. Like, it's that type of friendship where that person literally becomes you and embodies you, and you think the two of you are just so close, but you're not. This is just what they're doing because this is what's giving them that praise and that external validation at this time. And when it's over with, it'll be like it never even happened. And if you enjoy conversations like these, be sure to interact with this video with a comment and follow for more. If you've made it to this point in the video, then my hope is that you enjoyed it. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Consider subscribing to this channel or give this video a like, as it will help me greatly in the algorithm. My name is Chinez and welcome to my channel. At the time of this recording, you can still connect with me on TikTok at Chinez, Chinez. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Official Chinez. Check out my website. I offer personal tarot spiritual readings, and you can find information on that in the pinned comment and in the description box. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next episode.